Hi, happy Thursday. I'm Allegra of BYWD or Beyond Your Wildest Dreams, and I'm so happy to have you here with me. If you are joining me for the first time, welcome. My podcast, the Harness the Power of Planning podcast, which this live video cast always goes up as, is now heard in like 90 something countries. And so I thought it would be fun to start every podcast saying a little bit about those different countries because I have lived in the United States most of my life, and I wanna learn more about where you all are from. So, this week, I'm gonna tell you a few facts about Germany because my listenership goes United States, Brazil, France, Germany. Interesting fact, I think this is fascinating. 1/3 of Germany is still covered in forests and woodlands. I'm so jealous. That sounds idyllic. I love that. It is the 7th largest European country, and Berlin, this is really surprising to me, Berlin is 9 times bigger than Paris. I don't think I've been to Berlin. I've been to Munich, but not Berlin. 9 times bigger. Wow, that's amazing, and it has the largest economy in the EU, followed by France and Italy. Amazing. Thank you for listening from Germany. And if you're joining me for the first time, I am live. If you send me chats or whatever, I will see it and I will respond if you have a question that I need to respond to. And if you're listening to the recording, I will also see comments. So feel free to chat wherever you are listening and I will respond in as timely a manner as I can. And if you are new, then welcome. I am a brain science based productivity and time management expert, which really just means that I want to help you create more time and energy in your life by being more thoughtful and strategic about how you spend your time. I'm not trying to help you fit everything in. In fact, a lot of times what I'm telling people is, hey, maybe you should let go of something. I'm also really, part of giving you time and energy is also self-care because I don't think enough of us prioritize our own self-care, and I'm a big proponent of self-care. My favorite self-care methodologies are skincare, hiking with friends, and creative outlet via stand-up comedy. So those are the 3 ways I really feed myself so that I can show up as the best version of myself in all areas of my life, and also just so I'm having fun and growing and thriving because I think, that's the point of us being here is to all become our best selves and then to share that with the world. So those are my 3 things that I talk a lot about. And just so you know, in the next 2 episodes, so next week I'm going to have my friend Christine on. She's been on many times and we're going to talk. She is my most diplomatic friend. Anytime I need to strategize about how should I best say this thing, she's the person I call. And we're going to talk about what it takes to have lifelong relationships. She and I have been friends since the 8th grade. Yes. So at this point, we've been friends basically 100 years. And also, when it's time to let a long-term relationship go, whatever that relationship is, whether it's a friend or family. And we've been through that together many times now, so we'll share from our experience. And I'm also, if you are ever looking to learn more from me, I have these 4 short read books that will help you reclaim time and energy, and you can find those at tinyurl.com/BYWD books. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me. Today's topic is about how and why to be a lifelong learner. And, oh, sorry, I didn't tell you. So Christine is gonna be next week, and then in 2 weeks, I'm gonna do something a little bit different. I have been getting coached. This is going back to being a lifelong learner. I have been getting coached on my content, and one of the coaches recommended that I speak more about my skincare because it is such a big part of my self-care routine, and I know it's something that resonates with people who've seen me on Instagram because I don't know if they're just being polite or whatever, but when people find out that I'm 52, they inevitably ask me about my skincare because they also know that I use non-toxic products. I would never do, fillers or any sort of thing that's just doesn't, it's just not my philosophy. And So people inevitably ask, and I don't think of myself as a skincare expert. However, skincare is a big part of my self-care. And so in 2 weeks, I'm going to talk about my skincare journey because when I hit 40, my skin looked horrible. I had so many dark spots. I've lived in Southern California most of my life, and I have a lot of sun damage under my skin, and I had never worn a sunblock on a daily basis before I hit 40. Before I hit 40, it was just sunblock at the beach or when I'm hiking, but not on a daily basis. And I was not happy with my skin. And I was committed to learning what to do in order to take good enough care of my skin that I would not have to wear makeup because I don't enjoy makeup. I know some people do. For me, when I put makeup on, aside from what I have right now, this is literally like all the makeup I wear except for lipstick. What you see right now. When I put on more than this, I feel like a clown, and then I have to scrub it and take it off. So in 2 weeks, I'm going to talk about my skincare journey, and I've created a special. I'm still working on it, but it's almost done. A special document that goes through what I call the 7 steps for glowing skin for women over 40. And yes, when I hit 40, my skin was not in a good place. Between environmental damage and the hormonal changes that were probably starting to take effect. So it is not a minimalist skincare routine, let me tell you. However, I've come to love it for many reasons, and I'm going to talk about that in 2 weeks. So next week, my friend Christine talking about long-term relationships, friendships. And then in 2 weeks, I'm going to talk about my skincare journey starting at 40 to where I am now, 12 years later, 52. And my skin looks so much better than it did. My skin looks better now than it did even in my late 30s. So I'm going to give you the full 7-step process, which I include steps on there that you have not heard of before. I promise. It's not cleanse, tone, moisturize. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so today I want to talk about why and how to be a lifelong learner. And, I have to draw a card before I start my topic because these cards are always so illuminating for me. It is better to live your own destiny imperfectly than to imitate someone else's life perfectly. The Bhagavad Gita. Oh, so that's the Hindu religious text. It is better to live your own destiny imperfectly than to imitate someone else's life perfectly. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I feel that really hard. I mean, I don't think I've lived anyone else's life perfectly or imperfectly. And I can say that for sure because I was actually talking to someone the other day and okay, thank you, Amanda. Yes, Amanda is 73 and everyone guesses I'm 55 because I take care of myself. Exactly. That's what I really started prioritizing was taking care of myself. At 40, I realized I need to take care of myself because no one else is going to take care of me for me. And the thing is up until 40, you get to kind of coast. And then after 40, you have to decide, okay, which way do I want to live? And so anyway, yes, I do read the chat, Mr. Keep It Simple. Okay, so let's just go back to that card that I just pulled because it is better to live your own destiny imperfectly than to imitate someone else's life perfectly. I mean, that's all about being true to yourself. I truly believe that each of us has a gift to give to the world and that gift is our mission. And if we aren't giving that gift, then we're not doing what we're here to do. And to me, that goes back to your own destiny because, I was coaching a client yesterday. It was fascinating. So I do one-on-one productivity and time management coaching. And I have this client who is running a campaign to raise millions of dollars for a nonprofit. And the campaign culminates with a gala event in October. And so we were mapping the whole next 9 months. We started doing this about 2 months ago, but we're always adding to this. And, there's a lot of flowing over to his personal life in this giant 1-year calendar whiteboard, because you have to think about your personal life when you have your professional life. He has all these events he has to do for his campaign that he's working on. But I said, okay, well, do you have vacations, and where are those? And are you making sure that you're getting what you need to get done before you leave on vacation? And are you leaving enough recovery time afterwards? All the stuff that goes into planning. And he said to himself, he said to me, I think another version of me would do this better. And I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. There's never going to be another version of you, because the combination of DNA that came together and the combination of life experiences that you have had is never going to be the same. I mean, think about it. I think that's so interesting. You are the only you there will ever be. Even and he was like, he's a math guy. And he's like, well, technically, if you go to infinity, there's probably going to be another. I was like, okay, probably humans will not be around anymore by the time another you with exactly the same experience. Again, it's just not possible. You are the only you there will ever be. And if you don't share whatever it is that you have developed over your lifetime and with your DNA, then we are going to miss out on the gift that you have to share. So thank you, Bhagavad Gita, for reminding us that. I think about that all the time. That's why I do this podcast. That's why I do my stand-up comedy, because I feel like that is my mission. And if I don't do that, how imperfectly I do it, then I won't do it at all. And that would be me missing out on what I'm supposed to do. Okay, so how and why to be a lifelong learner? I loved school growing up. However, there was a solid period between, let's say, 27 and 30. No, I don't know, 27. Yeah, no, 27. Like, say 27 and 37. Maybe it wasn't exactly a decade, but it was between me getting my master's degree and, deciding to become a lifelong learner again. There was about a 10-year period where I didn't do very much learning outside of whatever I was pursuing, because okay, so maybe it wasn't a 10, maybe it was a 5-year period, but there was a 5-year period where I was not doing a lot of learning. And I'm guessing that was right around when I was being pregnant, and when my kiddo was really young, because she was first and foremost. And up until that time, I had always been in pursuit of knowledge. I got my bachelor's degree, I got my master's degree. Then I joined Toastmasters, which, if you've never heard of Toastmasters, it's a wonderful organization. It's changed a lot since I was really active with it. Unfortunately, I don't know how their curriculum is now, but when I was doing their curriculum, it was fantastic. And I attained what's called a DTM, a Distinguished Toastmaster, which is essentially a PhD in leadership and public speaking. And it took me about 5 years to do that. And only 1% of Toastmasters do that. So I did all that and was very much into learning. And then I guess around the time when I got pregnant, just things got busy. And I was really focused on learning whatever I could learn about my body and my baby and how to take care of that. And so I kind of dropped off with the general reading. I've always been a reader. I read about 100 books a year. However, nowadays, a lot of those books are actually audiobooks. So that's partially why my reading rate is so high, because I can listen to audiobooks when I am doing laundry or cooking or driving. It's so fantastic. It's such a great breakthrough being able to listen to audiobooks, on your smartphone. But the why of being a lifelong learner, I think, is just as important as the how. And I'm just going to say the why. I can tell you that when you have a mindset of being open to learning, you enter every situation with an open mind. I'm just going to say that again. When you believe that you have something to learn, you enter a situation with an open mind. And the opposite is true. The brain science has shown that if you go into something thinking, I already know everything I need to know, guess what? Your brain helps you out and just shuts down and won't hear even the best idea. Like, have you ever watched a movie and then you rewatch the movie and you say to yourself, oh my gosh, I didn't even notice that that thing happened? That's how it can be when you have a closed mind, right? We've had this expression in our language for a long time. He's or she is closed minded. He or she is open minded. It's literally, you will take in information, you won't take in information. The very information you are looking for is in front of you and you don't even hear it. Like, whatever struggle you are having right now, whether it is, I need to figure out what I want to do next for work, or I need to figure out how to manage my money better, or I need to figure out how to take care of my health. It is out there and it has probably already been told to you. I have actually found the information I needed from books that were given to me decades before by my father. But I was closed-minded when he gave them to me as a teenager. I thought I knew it all. And then later on, I read the book that he gave me and I think to myself, why did I not read this book when I was a teenager? It would have helped so much, but I was closed-minded. So this kind of goes back to what I was talking about, even just with my skincare. I would not have found the solutions if I didn't believe that the solutions were out there. So I was in search of the solutions. And let me tell you, I learned things that shocked me. Like, I thought I kind of knew what a wrinkle was. I had no idea what a wrinkle was. There are two things that I'm going to tell you about in 2 weeks about wrinkles that blew my mind when I figured them out. And so, coming back to being open-minded, I think it is so important to go through life open-minded. And this is actually called growth mindset. There's a great book written by a brain scientist named Carol Dweck. It's called Growth Mindset. And literally they show that people who believe they can learn do, and people who don't believe they can learn don't. There was a common misconception that the ability to speak a new language was something that had to be learned as a child because this window closed. And what Carol Dweck and her team found is that if you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, you can't. And that has been a saying forever, right? Like, whether you think you can or can't, you're probably right. I've heard some version of that expression, right? If you like the Yoda version, there is no try, only do, right? Whatever. This saying has been a part of our culture for a long time, but now the brain science shows it. So, become a lifelong learner. It will serve you in whatever goals you have in your life because the answers are out there. I'm always surprised at when I say to the universe or to myself, hey, I need to figure out how to plan a stand-up comedy show, right? Because now I produce stand-up comedy shows. And you know what? I did. I need to figure out how to make my skin as healthy as it can be. I did. So now let's get to the how to be a lifelong learner. I really like the idea of reading or listening to, a book or a podcast on a daily basis. And one rule of thumb I've heard is to read 10 pages of a book. And I would say 10 pages probably translates to about 10 minutes of listening. And so I think that if you just pick something that you want to learn about and then read 10 pages a day or listen to 10 minutes of podcasts a day, you will be amazed at how quickly you get through material. 10 pages a day will get you through a book in about a month. And that'll be 12 books that you've read this year. The listening, again, for me, that has really upped the quantity of books that I've been able to consume in a year. And it's really amazing too, because I rarely buy books, because obviously 100 books a year, that would be a lot of books. And I'm not great at letting go of things, which you probably heard me talk about last week when I was talking about the grand edit. And so I always try and borrow from the library first. And the great thing is you can borrow audiobooks with your little device here, but you can also borrow some. Not every book has been turned into an audiobook, but the great thing about if you read via Kindle is that they have an accessibility feature that will read documents to you. And so if the book doesn't have an audiobook version, I can borrow the Kindle version and then I set it to read to me. And so basically it's like it's turning it into an audiobook. Simple practice. Don't stress yourself out about, oh my gosh, I haven't read 10 pages a day. Just set a goal for yourself of, I'm going to try and do this 4 or 5 days a week. Start small. 10 pages is really small. If 10 pages is too much for you, go to 5 pages, go to 3, go to 2, go to 1 page. Go to the smallest amount that you need to do to make this an almost daily habit, and then you'll go up from there. You have to kind of just squeak it in. I've talked about this before as well. This is part of the Kaizen method about making a teeny tiny change, whatever amount you need to do in order to make it doable. Do that. And then, just get a little bit bigger, make that space a little bit bigger as time goes on. So 10 pages a day. I look forward to finding out how this works for you, because 12 books a year, that's a lot of new information you can introduce to yourself. Now, I just want to give you a little bit of a follow-up on the grand edit. I've been talking about how this is year 3, and this is my final year of the grand edit. And it's interesting because I actually have read 2 books in the last couple of weeks, both around editing, because as I mentioned, I am a very sentimental person, and so it can be hard for me to let go of things. Also, I'm a very practical person. So between being sentimental and practical, it's either, oh, so and so gave me that, I don't want to let go of it, or someday I might need that, I don't want to let go of it. And when you get to my age, you've acquired a lot of things. So knowing that there's information out there that could help me, and because I'm a lifelong learner, I've read 2 books in the last couple of weeks. One was cleaning house, how to clean house while drowning. That one is only a 3-hour long audiobook, very short. It was very interesting because she actually said some things that I've never heard discussed in like a cleaning or editing type of cleaning or organizing or, editing as in doing away with type of book. She said that she really focuses on making the tasks enjoyable for herself. So for instance, apparently she has a method for cleaning dishes, which is she doesn't do dishes all day long. And then at the end of the day, she goes and she grabs all the dishes and she puts them by the sink. And then she organizes the dishes and then she washes them all. So she organizes them, I guess, into like plates and bowls and glasses. And then she cleans them in a specific order. And she mentions in the book, look, I've had friends point out to me, you would have been done cleaning the dishes a long time ago if you would just clean the dishes as you were touching them. And she said, yes, I know, but that is painful to me. And that would keep me from doing my dishes. And so by making it palatable for her, that's how she gets through her dishes. And I thought that was really, really interesting. She also talks a lot about, does a space function? She clarifies that you can be organized and not be tidy. And that is me. I am very organized. I know where everything is. I can find it for you in a heartbeat. However, I do have quite a few piles, and a lot of my piles have to do with books, which is why I don't really buy books anymore. So I thought that was really interesting. And she says, but there is a point where a room goes from functional to no longer functional. And that's when I clean it. And I thought that was a great point, is that there is a point where, like, I'm just kind of a maximalist between my sentimentality and my love of information. However, there is a point where things start to feel less organized, and that's when it's no longer functioning for me. And so that was a great point, and I actually did some changing of things and released some things because of that. I don't know if you see here, I have a new background. This was actually part of it because the cloth one, it was harder to put away, and it made my space look cluttered in a way that it's very easy to put this room divider away, and this office space looks so much neater without it, that I'm really loving what I learned from that book. The second book I read is called The Year of Less. And it's interesting because some books tell you how to do something, and some books tell you why to do something, and some books tell you both. I always strive for both, by the way, in my books. So the first book, How to Clean House While Drowning, I felt like that was a little bit more how. This book, The Year of Less, is a little bit more why. Why she went through this process of, she ended up giving away 70% of her belongings, and it ended up giving her a lot of direction in her life, where she, in that 1 year period, so it's all about a year, in that 1 year period, she saved $17,000. She decided to become an entrepreneur, and she gave away 70% of her belongings, and she moved to an area where she had always wanted to be, but she'd been concerned that she couldn't afford to live there because the opportunities weren't as much. However, by editing out her belongings, she also really edited out the year of less is not just about getting rid of belongings, but about not spending on items unless absolutely necessary. And because she did that, she was able to save so much money and reduce her monthly costs of living by, I think she reduced it by like 60%, that she then said, "Oh, if I only have to make this amount of money, I can do that from that town." And she moved to this town that she'd always wanted to be in. So it's a very transformational book. It is not at all what I was expecting. When I got this book, I thought it was going to help me with my grand edit, but it was very interesting, the way it was woven together to talk about how this impacted all parts of her life. So I would say this is more of a why book, why you might want to do something. And it was very surprising to me. So I recommend both those books, and I'll put them in the show notes for the Harness the Power of Planning podcast, which this will go up as that. And you can find those two books because I did think they were great books, and they have helped me with my own grand edit and how I'm thinking about things. I don't aspire to get rid of 70% of my belongings like this last person. However, I do think, uh, some of the other lessons that she taught were helpful to me in my process. And I feel like I've been making great process just in this month, great progress just in this month. I'm looking around, and I'm feeling much more satisfied with my space than it was a month ago. So, yay, progress. And looking forward to continued progress throughout the year. I will keep you updated. So, thank you for joining me this week. As I mentioned, next week, my friend Christine will be joining me. We're going to talk about long term relationships, how to sustain them, and when not to. And then 2 weeks, I'm going to do my podcast that's all about my skincare journey from 40 to where I am now, 52. Thank you for joining me. Be sure to like and subscribe and rate wherever you listen. And remember, planning makes everything easier.